I understand that by the time you go to Northern Tier, you should be able to read a map and understand the features of a map. And this video is about understanding how to read and understand the maps which are used at Northern Tier, which look different than the maps you're probably used to using.
Hey, real quick, right before we jump into this video, if you'd do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Also, thank you for subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to be notified of future videos, please hit that bell icon. Have a great day and enjoy this video.
Real maps, or maps that can be used for navigation, require certain elements or features that allow you to use that map for navigation. Some of these map features are like the maps are to scale. And they have a coordinate system. Okay? They have a north arrow and they should list what the magnetic declination is. They identify by color or symbols real physical objects on the map or the terrain. The maps used at Northern Tier have most of these elements, but they aren't USGS maps, so they look different. But just because they look different doesn't mean that you don't know how to use them. So with that introduction, let's look at one of the maps that is used right around Ely Base. Let's start off this discussion on maps by looking at some of the features of this map. First, the map has a name and a number, which is found here. This map is the Basswood Fall and Moose Lake map, and it's numbered F10. The name and number are used to not only identify and name the map, but also to align this map with an adjacent map. Before we move on, let me show you how to identify the map to the east of this map. If you look at the eastern border of this map, there will be the map name and number listed for the map just to the east of this one. Once you have the other map identified, simply align the borders using the coordinate system and or the terrain. Note that there is some overlap in the terrain features between the maps. This is helpful when switching from using one map to the next so that you do not have to hold the two maps right next to each other and to continue paddling and navigating, which would be very difficult to do. And as a pro tip, if your travels for the day or the time being will include switching maps, just put the map you're currently using on one side of the map case and then the new map on the other side of the map case, and when you need to switch maps, just flip over the map case. Later, when you get to dry land, just remove the unused map from the map case and store it somewhere safe. Now let's continue on with some features of the maps. Now let's continue on with some of the map features. There is a north arrow on the map, but there is no mention of what the declination is for this map. I did speak with the company that produces these maps, and the north arrow is set to true north. But what is the declination for Ely, Minnesota? Well, currently the declination is -1 degree west, which is essentially zero and has no effect on your navigational needs. If you bring a GPS, make sure that you know how to switch between all the coordinate systems in the GPS to match the coordinate system of the map. Also make sure you know how to use latitude and longitude. And remember that latitude and longitude are based off of units of 60 and not 1000 as in UTM coordinate system. And if you downloaded and incorporated the digital maps for the area that you're in, make sure of course you know how to navigate using the digital maps in the GPS. Alright, now let's look at some different colors and symbols on the map. Land is yellow, water is blue, streams are black. and a portage trail is a set of red dots in a line. The length of the portage trail is measured in rods, which is the red number next to the portage trail. What is a rod, you ask? A rod is about 16.5 feet, or the length of a canoe, which was the traditional device used to measure the length of a portage trail. How long is the average portage trail? Well, of course, that would depend on where you go. For this map, 75% of the portage trails on this map are 35 rods, or approximately 600 feet long. On the land surface, there are topographic lines that represent the shape of the hills, or the topography. The terrain is generally flat, so these aren't going to be of much use to you. There are also blue underwater topographical lines. These are the inverse of surface topographic lines and represent the depth of water in the lake. Depth contours are not represented on every lake, and also understand that the actual water depth will vary depending on how much water is in the lake. Campsites are red dots, and Canadian entry points are identified by the red maple leaf and a number. As a pro tip, if your return destination is Ely Base, for example, then you need to memorize as a group where Ely Base is on the map and which map it is on. Ely Base is located on Moose Lake on map F10. You want to memorize the location because if you start marking up your map with a marker or a pen, I'd be very careful about what type of pen or marker you use, as some markers and pens, the ink inside them will dissolve in water and ruin the map. On the maps are numbered black boxes. These numbered boxes are helpful if you need to call back to base camp and try to explain where you are. For example, you could say we're on map F11 on Ema Lake, box 19, the north shore of Ema Lake. Of the 3 campsites on the north shore of Ema Lake, we are in the left or westernmost campsite, northwest of the word Ema. If you're curious, according to the company that produces these maps, the black boxes represent surveyed section lines, which was a way the land was surveyed. If you'll note, the lines are not perfectly aligned with north and south, east and west. And be aware that the numbers for the black boxes can repeat themselves on a map, because every 36 sections create a township. So how many sets of maps does your crew need? Well, let's assume you have 3 canoes, and I need you to hear all of this discussion and make an informed decision for your crew. So let's assume you have 3 canoes. Your interpreter should have a complete set of maps for everywhere you're going. But of course, as always, double check with your interpreter after you've created your float plan to make sure that the interpreter has all the maps you need. Okay, so let's say the interpreter has every map that you need for your route. So how many sets of maps does your crew need to buy? Well, at an absolute minimum, you need a set of maps for each canoe. So as a crew, you would need to buy 2 complete sets of maps. So that would be a set of maps for each canoe that does not have the interpreter in it. Okay, so the minimum number of sets of maps to buy is 2. Now that being said, if you want to buy 3 sets of maps and have your own set of maps independent of the interpreter, well, that's fine also. And when you're out practicing paddling and navigating back home, you should have 3 map cases already. So I realize that buying an extra set of maps is extra cost, but maybe it's worth it for your crew, and you get to decide. So I guess I should mention, where do you buy the maps? Well, you're going to buy the maps at Northern Tier. There's no use in buying maps in advance because you haven't filed your float plan yet and you won't know exactly where you're going. I'd also say, as a pro tip, you should buy your maps the evening before you leave for the backcountry. I can tell you the morning you leave for the water will be very busy, and the trading post may not be open until, say, maybe 8 a.m., which may conflict with your scheduled departure time. So I would suggest that you get as much done the evening before your morning departure that you can, because your departure morning will be crazy enough as it is, and you don't need to add to it. And you want to be confident that once you've left base camp, you've taken care of everything, and you don't need to be worried about, did I forget to do something? The map case needs to be large enough to display an appreciable amount of the map so that you're not constantly folding and refolding the map inside the canoe. But you also don't want the case that's too large or it's in the way. So you don't want a map case that's too small or too large. I've used the NRS Hydrolock map accessory case, size medium. I found this size medium map case to be just about the perfect size for use at Northern Tier. Make sure you place a real compass inside the map case on top of the map. A real compass meaning one that you can use for navigation. Remember, a real compass has to be flat to allow the needle to spin freely and point to north. What you will find very valuable is a small pin-on ball compass. Most of the time you just need to know where north is. These ball compasses can be clipped to your life jacket and then just glanced at. They are not affected by the roll and pitch of the canoe, so they always show north. Now they aren't as precise as a real compass, but I think you will find for most of your macro level navigation, which is what you'll be doing 99% of the time on the water, it is more than adequate for this purpose. And for this purpose, it is very efficient. Taking the time to flatten the map case, align and orient the map while in the canoe, especially if you're having to paddle at the same time, is almost impossible, if not just time consuming. And you don't have the luxury of taking your time when the canoe is being blown around with the wind. So the small ball compass pinned to your life jacket where you can just glance at it is great and very efficient. So in closing, on your trip you'll be using your maps all day. You'll need to be able to quickly glance at the map, read the map, ask yourself, where am I? Which way's north? Am I headed in the right direction? Does the terrain match the map? And then get back to paddling. And if you only have 2 people in the canoe, the captain is doing all this while paddling at the same time. So the captain in this canoe has to be very proficient at paddling and reading the map. Okay? And the captain has to choose a good time to look at the map, because especially if it's windy, that's going to be difficult. Because while you're paddling as the captain, you're trying to keep the canoe on course, and then stopping to look at the map should be a very quick process. So the canoe more or less stays on course. And one last very important thing. If as a crew you manage to lose all of your maps, or you forget a map that you forgot to buy, you're not going to be able to find your way home, okay? Or find your way to the next place you're going, okay? Where you're headed is an endless maze of lakes, and there's no way to get around, especially efficiently, without a map, okay? This isn't Philmont, where there are literal "you are here" signs and then posts in the ground with UTM coordinates on them. This is for real, okay? You're completely on your own, and if you mess up navigation or you lose your maps, you're done. And quite possibly, you may not be able to find your way home. And you might be thinking, well, I'll just ask another group where I am. There may be nobody to ask. You're in a very remote place, and you may not see anyone for days, especially in Canada. So make sure you take good care of your maps and don't lose them. And with that, that ends this video, and have a blessed day.
Hey, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you'd like to support this channel, remember, please subscribe to this channel, tell your friends about it. Thanks for hitting that like button. Everything here is free. I want to give back to the community. I want to give to you everything here for free. I've been out in the outdoors for a long, long time, and it's great that I can be able to give all this information to you. That is what's most important to me. If you would like to give back, I do have a GoFundMe page set up, and you can follow the link. And if you'd like to, if you're a youth with your parents' support, I would gladly accept your donations. Thank you and have a blessed day.